Hello everyone and welcome back to more Knowing Wheel. Yes, we return once again for episode 106 of your favourite Formula 1 show. This week back, of course, previewing the Australian Grand Prix. And as always, I'm joined by a man who is single-handedly keeping the North Welsh economy alive by his constant vacating to the area. Jamie183 is back once again. How are we doing, my good friend?
I'm good. I'm on the brink of once again going to North Wales in tomorrow as we record this. As you watch this, I'll probably be there. And as you watch next week's podcast, I'll also be there because I'm going to have to record from there. But yeah, we're here today. I've not actually moved venue in a while, so it was a trend for a bit, but now I'm staying put until next week. But yeah, looking forward to discussing Formula 1.
Yeah, exactly. It's always a good time of the week, isn't it, to discuss some Formula 1. But of course, you know, as always, we gotta give a shout out to the socials down in the description below. Of course, if you're watching here on YouTube, timestamps as well will be linked. We've got a few different various talking points to go through today. So yeah, of course, skip to where you want to go. Obviously, there'll be links, like we said, Spotify, iTunes, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff, Twitter as well. Of course, we're almost at 50 followers on Twitter, which now I've said it sounds a lot less impressive,
Yeah,
but we're getting there. Slowly but surely. But Jamie, kick us off then this week with some big news coming in, which when I first read it, I thought was big news until I realised it was no news at all.
Yeah, and it's basically, nothing really has happened, but they've removed the porpoising measures that were put into place obviously last year with the whole change your effing car and all that kind of stuff that we saw in Netflix. But they really don't make a difference because obviously the FIA put in proper rules to stop porpoising happening in the form of like higher ride heights, basically making the floor regs different, which means the porpoising wasn't an issue anyway. So now they've just removed the measuring, like the way to measure porpoising basically, which really it doesn't make a difference at all. But it could have been, because it could have, if they hadn't put these new floor regs in place, it could have been a return to the beginning of 2022 with cars bouncing down the straights. But thankfully not, for the drivers' spines and Toto Wolff's mental health. And the cars will remain exactly the same.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, they haven't changed any of the rules. They're just no longer going to keep measuring it. So we could theoretically see a little bit of trickery coming in from a couple of teams, but based on people much smarter than us have been saying that they don't think it'll make much difference whatsoever. It's just the FIA. Of course, if no team's getting anywhere close to it, then it's like, for example, if they had a rule put in place that the cars have to weigh 50 kilos, including driver. Yeah. Of course, if no car's getting anywhere near there's no point really having that rule anymore. But it doesn't obviously mean that the teams can bring the floors further down again. But it is interesting, that we've kind of had that clarification and they're confident to make that call just 2 races in that the new rules have worked for 2023.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if it backfires, certainly. But nothing the FIA has ever done has gone wrong before, I'm sure. So.
No, of course not. Of course not. Formula 1 has always been flawless in every single running and iteration there. One thing that could immediately then, Jamie, go potentially wrong, Australia, Melbourne, Albert Park, 4 DRS zones is back for 2023. Of course, we test drove it last year. I think it was an FP1, wasn't it? Only.
Yeah.
And they decided no. But this year, it's becoming a real thing. And based on the data, Red Bull are going to dominate this weekend even more than normal because of it.
Well, they've basically, I think because of track design in recent years to try and make overtaking better, all the new tracks or all the track changes that we've seen to the likes of Abu Dhabi or Australia or the new tracks like Saudi and Qatar and stuff, they're all just really long straights with a bunch of really simple corners. So Red Bull have been like, right, since most of the tracks are just straight lines, let's make our car OP on the straights. And it seems to be working for them. So yeah, when we get to the likes of Monaco or where else is even cornery anymore?
Singapore. But even that's
quite high speed, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say Spain, but of course that's been changed. I mean, really, what we're saying here is Formula 1 is completely rigged for Red Bull, isn't it? They're literally changing tracks to suit their car.
Yeah, first it was the rules, now it's... We'll avoid that one for today. But, yeah, I don't think... Like, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if they revert back to 3 DRS zones again, like they did last year. But, yeah, 4 does seem a bit excessive. You might have to go back to, like, 2011, 2012 time where... in qualifying you could just use it wherever. But yeah, Red Bull. The reason it favors Red Bull more is because they've kind of found a loophole or a solution to DRS, which means that they gain more relative to other teams with DRS in their top end speed, sort of reminiscent of the 2012 Mercedes, which got like a double DRS thing, which made them just rapid on the straights with DRS. So yeah, it's probably going to be another Red Bull whitewash, to be honest.
Well, it's been dubbed as triple DRS, what Red Bull have effectively done with it. Because not only, of course, have they got DRS as standard, the rear wing then also, they're the only top team that, I think it's the rear wing spacer, has to be a minimum of 80 mil, I want to say it is. Every other team, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, it's so weird still saying Aston Martin as a front runner, but I think we've just got to accept reality. Every other team is running way more than that, but Red Bull are right at that 80 minimum limit. And of course, there's still the belief, isn't there, that Red Bull have found a way to squat the rear end, similar to how both Red Bull and Mercedes did in 2021, that of course everyone thought was impossible to do with the new regs. But of course, our Lord and Saviour, Adrian Newey, once again has struck down his hammer of dominance and just aero wizardry. But that being said, though, of course, we had the data come out from Saudi Arabia, and as Jamie said, this is going to play into Red Bull's hands. Their drag, when the DRS is opened, is reduced by 31%, which is just mind-blowing. To put that into perspective, Aston Martin sit at 22%, Mercedes sit at 26%, and Ferrari at just 28%. Red Bull have really just knocked this out of the park.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe F1 try and do something about it, like I don't know, shorten or lessen the number of DRS.
Take their rear wings shut permanently.
Ban Red Bull from using DRS. No, it's tough times to hope for a good season in terms of championship fight, at least. But we shall see. We're here to be surprised. We're only 2 races in out of 23, so you never know. But we kind of do.
We've got a fair idea, I think it's safe to say. But of course, it looks like then, based on that data, Aston Martin could get quite badly hurt if they keep the 4 DRS zones in. Of course, that does also, Jamie, obviously we saw last weekend, Fernando Alonso taking his 100th podium in Formula 1.
We did.
Here's an interesting fact I found out for you this week. Did you know, of course, he joins 5 other drivers, doesn't he? So he's the 6th driver with 100 podiums now in Formula 1. Kimi Räikkönen, Sebastian Vettel, Alain Prost, Schumacher, Hamilton. All 5 of those drivers, their 101st podium was a win. Is Alonso going to keep that streak alive?
That is such an arbitrary stat. Was Kimi's really... Oh, yeah, his 100th was Monza and his next was USA, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is... I mean, it's written in the stars, really, isn't it? It's guaranteed to happen. Everyone's take 100 quid on Alonso winning
this weekend.
Maybe not this weekend. I reckon Monaco. He's not.
You reckon Monaco?
No more podiums
so he's
until Monaco.
No more podiums until he just smashes out of the park at Monaco.
Yeah,
Okay. Porsche, in a bit more disappointing news though, have officially confirmed they're not coming to Formula 1. They've tried different avenues. Of course, we all heard about Red Bull. They tried with Williams and McLaren. And they've said it's no longer a priority. It's no longer a central point of focus. They're going to continue doing what they do, just generally in motorsport, obviously with their new GTP/LMDH program, sports cars, all that good stuff. A bit disappointing, isn't it?
A little bit, but I think F1 will cope because I don't think Porsche was ever trying to be its own team. And obviously we've seen Red Bull get in bed with Ford and Audi obviously coming in as part of Sauber, so there's plenty of big manufacturers are interested in the sport still. It's a shame, but it's not the end of the world as long as we do get an 11th team in Andretti, which I really hope happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath about that one either. But it is quite interesting, of course, the fact that Porsche, Audi and Ford... Well, Ford was never really a big talking point until suddenly it was basically confirmed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just how differently all 3 of those teams have effectively come in. Of course, Ford are basically just sponsoring Red Bull, like any other sponsor pretty much, and providing a small amount of technical insight. Audi, of course, have gone in with the big spending and trying to gain control over a obviously smaller team in Sauber. But Porsche kind of wanted to have their cake and eat it too, didn't they?
Yeah.
It felt like they weren't willing to provide enough to Formula One teams, but also just wanted to buy in and have control still.
Yeah, it was an F1 teams are notoriously difficult to negotiate with. Especially when it comes to selling themselves off. So it's not a massive surprise to me that they couldn't get a deal done with anyone.
No, and I mean, it's weird, isn't it, as well? Because, of course, you mentioned about how difficult Formula One teams are to be sold off. Depends on the Formula One team and when, of course. Some
True.
teams, looks at Honda at the end of 2008.
Yeah,
to
£1.
sell that team for £1. But I think, it was interesting reading a couple of articles about it because, of course, 2026 would have been the perfect time for Porsche, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
New power units and, obviously, new era regulations as well. Effectively a clean slate for everyone with the new era. But, of course, on the other hand to that, it's also the worst time for them to try and get involved because it's the first time in a long time that every Formula One team, if I believe correctly, is currently profitable. Which is mad.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. And the startup costs of an F1 team are ludicrous. So you'd be dropping
especially
hundreds.
with the 600 mil you've got to pay.
Yeah, you'd be spending probably over $1 billion, definitely hundreds of millions to even begin a Formula One team. So yeah, it is a huge commitment to try and become your own entry. And yeah, I don't think there's a new Concord agreement coming anytime soon. So yeah. It's not looking well. Porsche have obviously pulled out now, so that's a shame. But I think we'll survive.
We will. But it would have been nice to see some Porsche technology, of course, because they just have got such an illustrious Formula One past. Do you know, Jamie, the last team that Porsche worked with in Formula One?
I didn't even know they had worked with a team.
Yeah, they've had their own team before. They've powered other teams before.
Was it something random like Van Wall?
No.
Ah.
Well, it was random, but not Van Wall.
Who was it?
Footwork.
Oh, that wasn't actually far off. I categorised.
Well, you were quite far off.
I categorised random names of teams that I don't know anymore in the same area.
I mean, Porsche powered McLaren for a few years under Tag.
Yeah,
Jamie,
I suppose.
Back in the 80s.
Fair enough.
So they've certainly dipped in and out, of course, but they've only ever really had a Porsche Formula One team. Well, it was 1960. Where I think they rebadged a different car and then did 1961 and were like, we don't really care.
Yeah,
they've never come back in a full capacity. Speaking of teams, though, that were successful back in the 1960s and haven't been since, that's a bit harsh, but still. McLaren.
That was a great
segue. It just seems to be getting weird and weirder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For McLaren. James Key now leaving the organisation and no one is taking his role.
And they've kind of split it up into four. Is it 4? 3 or 4 people, isn't it? Taking on all the areas of responsibility that he was covering on his own. He was obviously a key member of the team.
Got to get that in there. I knew you
would. It's a very early mark of like authority from Andrea Stella. He's the team principal, right? Yeah, so quite mad, and it does remind me a little bit of 2014 Ferrari when they just sacked Aldo Costa after like 5 races because the car was so trash. Did you know that Ferrari was the only Formula One car to oversteer and understeer? I've never seen that tweet in my life. I'm so glad you shared that. No, I don't see it
every other week as well. I think there genuinely should be a rule now. If you post that clip on Twitter, you should get banned.
Yeah, come on, Elon, sort us out. Yeah, it's a very major step to make, and it makes me think that potentially the problems with the car are a little deeper than they first feared, because they thought it was just a Bahrain thing, but then we got to Saudi and they're still trash. So yeah, not looking good for McLaren fans right now.
I mean, it's their worst start to a season since 2017. Obviously not scoring points in the first 2 Grand Prix, which the fact that that's happened at least 3 times, I think, in the last decade is not great for McLaren. But of course, they finished 3rd in 2021, 4th in 2022. Third in 2020, 4th in 2021, 5th in 2022.
Yeah.
It's just it's difficult to start pointing the finger, Jamie. But do we have to wonder if Zach Brown is not the right man for the job?
Well, eventually, you keep making personnel changes and nothing happens, and you do look at the management. And, I mean, I like the guy. He certainly seems to have done a good job, certainly since taking over from Ron Dennis. Like, the trajectory was definitely upwards for a bit. But it's, 4 years?
Couldn't go much further down, though.
No, exactly. It is, 4 years of regression now, basically. And it's looking, obviously 3rd, 4th, 5th, and at best, I think they'll be getting 6th this year. Because obviously you've got the big 4, plus I reckon Alpine will get enough
Alpine
to
are
finish
looking
5th.
consistent enough. Yeah.
So, at best you're looking at 5th. If it stays at 6th, if it stays as it is now, you're looking at 8th or 9th, really. So,
well, I mean, at the moment you're looking at 10th.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to keep changing people, you imagine, for a bit longer before Zach Brown starts getting questions, but you never know. It's not quite as bad as football, but Formula 1, the tempers are very short when it comes to...
I'd say it's not as bad as football unless you're Ferrari.
Yeah, true.
They
change
trade
every 2
him
years.
out constantly.
Yeah. So maybe it is time for look in the mirror a little bit for not James Key, he's already gone, for Zach Brown.
He's gone, yeah. He's not looking in the mirror, mate.
No, he's looking at his check in the post of his department, of his departure. What are the words? I've forgotten what they are.
You're not making sentences there, my friend. That is awful.
His break clause, that's the one.
his break clause. Break of contract. Breach of contract.
Yes.
We'll get there in the end. Clearly Jamie can't string together sentences anymore. It seems like Stefano Domenicali wants to stop anyone being able to string a race weekend together anymore. Apparently, Domenicali has come out on the record literally today. This is hot off the press until, of course, it's not hot off the press because this video will go live after we've recorded it. Domenicali wants to get rid of free practice, Jamie, because it's boring for the fans.
Yeah. This sounds like the same reason as people always get rid of testing, because it's boring. Or just don't watch it. It's not for the fans.
It's so simple.
It's like if you wanted to, if you were really into a TV show, and someone just put a camera at the back of the filming studio while it was getting filmed, and you just sat there watching it all day getting filmed, you'd maybe find it interesting for an hour, and then it's boring after that because it's the same thing and it's repetitive and it's all rubbish. That's effectively what practice is for. It's not for...
It's a setup.
Yeah, it's a setup for the race.
It's literally set up for the cars.
And it's not for the fans, it's for the teams and the drivers. Like, yeah, it just seems ludicrous to me. That said, I was a fan of when they shortened it from 90 minutes to 1 hour. So yeah, I think not letting the teams be all have all the knowledge basically is a good thing, but getting rid of it entirely just seems like you're asking for an absolute mess of setups and reliability. So I don't
think that's the case though. I think teams would just obviously have to put even more focus on simulator work. But I must admit, I do think Friday night qualifying works quite well, of course, when they've only had one free practice session. That can be quite interesting. But it just feels at the moment, and I know we've spoke about this before in recent times, that Formula 1 is heading down the same slope that NASCAR did back in the early 2000s. So obviously you won't be aware of much of this, Jamie. But so basically, obviously NASCAR in the late 90s and the turn of the millennium, second biggest sport in America. It had absolutely blown up. The interest was everywhere. The drivers were household names, everything like that. And then 2003 came along. Matt Kenseth won the championship despite winning one race all year and led the points in the championship basically from start to finish. So, for 2004, Jamie, picture this for Formula 1. They brought in the chase. How does the chase work? Well, if we put it in Formula 1 terms, let's say we get up to the end of Monza, and then, Jamie, after the Italian Grand Prix, of course, normally we head to Singapore, only the top 10 can win the championship now.
Okay. And
their points are all reset. They're now on equal points. So, for example, let's say you get to the Singapore Grand Prix, only the top 10 drivers can now win the championship, but they're all now on 500 points. Because they've got to be far enough ahead that no one behind them can catch them up, effectively. Then, after the first 3 races, after Singapore, so let's say Singapore, Japan, and COTA, let's try and basically use last year's calendar. The bottom 4 of those 10 are knocked out.
Yeah.
They can't win the
so it's a
championship
bit like a
anymore.
playoff almost.
It's playoffs, and it's awful.
It does sound terrible for a motorsport, but to be fair, you won't know anything about this, but the Scottish Football League and the Belgian Football League do something similar. So
Yes,
like everyone plays
yeah.
each other twice, and then only the top half, which is the top 6 in both those leagues, can then win the title, and they play each other once more, maybe twice more. And all their points are halved as well at that point. So I guess it's not reset fully, but there's precedent. It's a pretty bad idea for F1, but I can see a little bit why they thought it might work. But obviously it doesn't.
Well,
so.
No, exactly. Because, of course, what you've ended up with NASCAR nowadays is, I think, normally now, the driver that would have won with a Formula 1 point system in the 20 years since then. So if, like, NASCAR had followed a Formula 1 style system, in the last 20 years, 2 drivers that actually won the championship would still win the championship.
That's crazy.
Because it basically goes to the final race, and then it's just a lottery between, like, the 4 drivers that are still eligible to win it. I mean, the only other thing that I worry about as well is, could we end up doing something similar to NASCAR with competition cautions?
They just
20,
random safety cars, basically.
At lap 20, they bring out a safety car.
So
But
what's the point
that
of the
being
first 20
said,
laps then?
literally yesterday was the first NASCAR race in years where they haven't done that. At COTA, which was apparently a very, very good race. I did see bits of it.
Interesting.
But it wouldn't surprise me if Formula 1 go down that route.
It is basically like a mini sprint race to decide the grid for the real race.
They do.
Just without a day
I think it's a
between.
quarter of the race, another quarter of the race, and then half the race.
So it is a little bit like sprint races. You race for a bit, and then you
Yeah.
reset, and then you race a bit. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same concept, but not on
Yeah.
different days.
Exactly. It's all in one race.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I hope everyone doesn't go down there. I quite like it as it is, to be honest.
Yeah. Keep
So-
our free practice, sorry, was the point
Yeah,
of
that's
that
the
round.
point. We've gone on a
If-
rabbit hole tangent, but there we
If
go.
you don't want to watch it, you don't watch it. Plus, like they're saying, they're like, it's not great for the fans at the Grand Prix. But then they're also saying that they want to give fans more action. What are you going to
Yeah.
start doing? Just force
get
them all
them to
like to
do
go
donuts.
on go-karts or something, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever. They're literally trying to satisfy 2 completely opposite requirements. And they're not even requirements. Switch your TV off and do something with your life.
Yeah, go to work. That's what I'm usually doing on Friday midday.
Exactly. Well, I'm normally eating food with my grandparents, to be fair, so I guess I can't
Well, that's
complain
better
too
than
much,
watching
still.
practice.
It probably is, yeah. Anyway, Jamie, we've rattled through quite a lot today. We've done very, very well. We've been concise, but now it's time for you to start rambling. It's time
Oh,
for
here
the
we go.
weekly quiz.
I smashed it 2 weeks ago, so I'm looking forward to this.
You did smash it 2 weeks ago. So, Jamie, today there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18
Right.
drivers
This is a lot.
on your list. It's pretty simple, and you are... Now, obviously, for those of you that listen every week, you'll know Jamie picks some horrible quizzes for me.
I mean,
You are going
don't.
to tell me the driver that's finished last. No, I'm
oh,
joking.
that was
That's
mine.
Evelyn's.
No.
It was yours this week, but we're not rolling with it. Pretty simple, Jamie. I need to get the timer up.
Nah, don't. Tell me the
No,
question first.
you're having a timer. You're getting 60 seconds.
18.
Once I
There's
find
no
it.
way I'm doing all of these.
You're right. You get 90 seconds. I mean, you won't get it anyway.
Okay,
Still,
great.
you get 90 seconds. You, sir, are going to tell me every Australian driver that's ever raced in Formula 1. The time starts now.
Danny Rick, Mark Webber.
Yeah. Yeah.
Denny Hulme.
Yeah.
John
No,
Watson.
he was New Zealand.
No, John Watson's British. Half the corners have their names in Melbourne. What? Oh, this is a shambles. Oh, Bruce. No, he's New Zealand as well.
Yeah, you keep thinking of the Kiwis.
I'm panicking.
So far, you've got 2.
There's
if I'm not
world
mistaken.
champions.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely flopping this completely. Ugh.
You are horrendously. 55 seconds, good sir.
Okay, let's chill out.
In fact, 55 seconds, one of the Australian Formula 1 world champions made his debut in 1955.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm going to get that. Australians. Paul Stoddart.
No, he never raced.
This is atrocious.
You've just got an obsession with Paul Stoddart.
How
You've got a
far back
crush
is
on
the
him.
next one before Webber? Can I ask?
1990s.
Oh, there's zero chance. I might just give up. My name's in the mud. This is awful.
20 seconds.
Denny Hume, John.
Both still.
I
not
know.
Australian.
I'm literally
you
just
can't
saying the
keep
same
saying
names.
their names.
The thing is, there's a
This
lot
has
of.
been awful.
I know. I literally got the two that everyone would get.
5 seconds.
Really, that's appalling. I feel like I've never done a worse quiz.
You have done horrendously.
Tell me some that
Right,
I'll know,
there we go.
and I would know.
So you, just to confirm, there you gave us Mark Webber and Daniel Ricciardo, correct?
Yes.
But you forgot Oscar Piastri.
Oh yeah, nice.
That's always reassuring.
He's only been here for 2 races, to be fair, and I haven't watched either
He's
race.
just started. Have you already forgot about him? I mean, the ones you definitely should have got, Jamie. A young man by the name of Jack Brabham, three-time Formula One world champion.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pretty much name all the Formula One world champions.
Yeah, I
can't you,
completely
Seb
forgot
Starr?
about them.
You may as well have just gone through them all.
My head's not in the game today.
First champion for Williams as well. Can you remember him now?
That's the one I was thinking of, John Watson, because he also won for Williams, didn't he? I can't
Didn't
remember.
win a title for him.
Oh, he raced for them. I can't. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Alan Jones.
Oh, Alan Jones. They all just sound British. If you ask me like Japanese, I'd be able to get them.
Well, there's like 4 Japanese Formula One drivers ever. They've got such a bizarre history of Formula One. I want to do a whole thing.
We should.
On it
We should
one
do
day.
a Japanese special.
I've actually got a script written for a video I wanted to do about the history of Japanese drivers in Formula One because
Do
it's
it.
mental.
Do it right now.
Um,
We can move on from that appalling quiz.
no, because I want to go through the other. I mean, most of the others you won't have heard of.
Okay,
So you
good.
had Tony Gaze,
No.
first ever Australian, made 3 starts. Paul England
Oh,
made
wow.
1 start.
I definitely
Ken
thought.
Kavanagh made 2. Frank Gardner made 9. Paul Hawkins with 3. Tim Schenken you probably have heard
I
of,
haven't
to be
heard, I
fair.
haven't heard of him.
Have you not? I've heard of him.
I know nothing about
30
F1 before
34
like
starts
the
for him.
90s.
David Walker, Vern Schupan,
These are just a bunch
Larry
of names. You're just
Perkins.
making them up.
Warwick Brown, Brian McGeer, and then you had, I think these are both Brabham's sons or relatives, because you have Gary Brabham and David Brabham as well.
So if I said Brabham, I'd have got more than I actually got.
Yes. Yeah, you did not do
That
well
was
there.
horrific.
You
It was
did
a
not do
very
well.
tough category, but I should have got more than 2.
Yeah, you should. I mean, you should have got 3.
I should have got at
I mean,
least 3.
sensibly 5. Sensibly 5. I think would have been fair there. Anyway, Jamie, I think there's no other major news
embarrassed.
to go through, is there?
Next
you
week,
have really embarrassed
I'm
yourself.
going to ask you to name the finishing results from the 1954 US Grand Prix.
It was Indy, so it was probably someone bizarre.
Exactly.
It was probably Jaeger McCheeseburger. Anyway, predictions for Australia. You're currently still 7-4 up on me, so I'm going first.
Okay. You're going to go boring, and I might just match you.
I really am. Yep. Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc.
Okay. Verstappen.
Oh, you can't pick the same.
I'm not
as
going to
me.
pick exactly the same. I'll go Verstappen. I'll go... Maybe I mix it up a bit. What were the DRS stats again? Ferrari. Okay.
I mean, we said that last weekend. Aston Martin
Yeah,
still
true.
finished 3rd.
I'll actually go Russell, second place.
P2 for George. Okay.
And then Alonso again. Why not? I'm going to
So he's going to. You told
completely
me he
go
wasn't getting a
against.
podium until
Completely
Monaco.
go against
Yeah.
what I said earlier. And
You're contradicting yourself from half an hour ago.
Yeah, that's a record for me.
Fair play. So Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, Alonso for Mr.
Indeed.
183. Is there anything else we need to run through today, Jamie? Are you going to apologise to the listeners?
I want to apologise to any
For that-
Australians listening that I let you down. I let myself down. I let my country down. So yeah, it's a bad time.
How did you let your country down? You're not Australian.
Yeah, it was. Didn't I say Alan Jones?
You did not say Alan Jones.
Who did I say?
You didn't say anyone apart from Ricardo and Webber.
No, I
You said-
swear
you
I said Alan Jones. I've just
You
looked at the
kept
list.
saying Denny Hulme, Jamie.
Okay, I
You
want
just
a
kept saying
VAR
Denny
check
Hulme.
on this.
Okay, after the show, when we go into editing, I might give him an arbitrary point afterwards. But on that controversial
I know.
ending, then I suppose.
More controversial than Abu Dhabi 2021 is.
Well, yeah, maybe. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you follow us, leave a like, get yourself subscribed if you're here on YouTube, and we will return next week with apparently more knowing wheel, but after Jamie's display there, I'm not convinced.